So this is my first time moderating, I was telling Ted, so if this doesn't go well, it's on him. No pressure, though. So I was doing, well, first of all, I don't know if the whole introduction, but I think it's been pretty described. You've got about 15 titles behind your name, I was noticing, and I don't know if you rank those in order or preference. I checked Wikipedia because I was told if you're a moderator, you should read the Wikipedia page of someone, so that is the research I've done. And it talks about a list of 100 things that you wanted to do before you died. You were in a plane crash or almost and made a list. And just wondering, is this panel one of those things?
No, but making a list actually I had a reckoning, and I had been programmed to be successful. And as the plane was going down, none of the things that I had been programmed for had any meaning. And so I actually have a little bit of faith and was praying really, really hard. And in mid-prayer, people were crying on the plane and praying, and I started praying. And then I said to God, let's cut a deal. Let's try to make a deal, and if I get through this, I'll leave more than I take, and you'll get 10 times your money. And so I tried to do like a venture deal on the way down. And what I came to realize was that double bottom line pursuits, trying to do well by doing good, would become that second act of my life. And so I had a reckoning personally, and then I came to realize that all our companies, all our institutions have their reckonings, and then from that reckoning they have to go and create their own double bottom line pursuits. And so now as an investor, one of the big screens that I look at is looking at companies that can do well while they're doing good. And they have double bottom line pursuits, and that's become kind of a big theme for Revolution and the kinds of companies that we want to invest in, and also the kinds of self-actualized entrepreneurs that we want to back.
So what's left on the list? The thing that you think you won't maybe get to, or that scares you the most?
I put going to outer space, 25 years ago, that seemed like a reach. And although I just saw the movie Gravity, and I'm not so sure that's such a good idea. But I bet you I can get that one off the list.
I'm the 775th astronaut confirmed for Virgin, and
Nice.
I have been told not to go see Gravity. We just went and saw the spaceship a few weeks ago in California, and I think that was scary enough, but the movie...
There's a great long-time exec in the industry, Microsoft exec named Charles Simonyi. He's really a brilliant guy, and he's been up to space twice. And so I was picking his brain, and he said, well, rather than telling you about it, let me show you videos. I took videos on the space station and of my training in Russia. And you just have in your mind's eye that's NASA, it's big data, it's big iron. It looked like a school bus. I mean, it really did. They had literally 1970s technology. It was masking tape everywhere. It's truly amazing that nothing bad has happened to the space station.
Feeling very optimistic and safe now. Thank you. Social media. It's a new word I've heard recently. So I was the 7th or 8th or something employee at Facebook, and didn't know what it was at the time when I said yes to Sean Parker when he made me the offer, but I was huge on AOL. And I think my generation is the first that I remember hearing that reunions are no longer as important as they once were, and then schools are having big difficulty getting people to come back because they've stayed in touch with those that they've wanted to, and the AOL away message on Instant Messenger was my way of, stalking all of my friends and finding out, who and where they were. So, we've gone from that and the message boards and everything else to Facebook and, everything in between, and now the Snapchats and mobile and Path and everything else. Having been at the beginning of what I would consider social media, where do you think it goes next, and how are you feeling about where it's gone to so far?
I saw Yossi Vardi when I walked in today, and Yossi was really at the forefront early on of social media. I would say that AIM, ICQ, really the virality of being able to use the network effect really started what social media is today. I look at Twitter, I'm very proud of what Twitter has built, but that was like a feature within AIM. Now, we didn't execute it that way. We didn't see it as a publishing platform, but we did have status messaging. And, here we're supposed to be talking about the next new thing. And most of the next new things are built on narrative, nomenclature, business model that's 20 and 30 years old. It's just nuanced and executed in a more contemporary way. And it's also being done by young people who are really at their creative peak, and they execute it. Their willpower brings these things to fruition. And so I look at Twitter, you talked about, Snapchat, these are all early on when we were talking about, we were talking about the phenomenon of social media. I think ICQ literally had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of people around the world, and they never using the product, and they never spent $1 in advertising. In fact, they didn't have a marketing executive. And Yossi, I remember when I first met him, and I asked him, what's the business model? And he said, well, revenues are a distraction. When I first met the people at Twitter, literally 6 years ago, I asked them, what's the business model? And they said, we don't have a business model. Our business model is getting usage, getting people habituated, getting the habitual usage, and then we'll figure it out as we go along. And so I said, well, I've seen that movie before, and it actually works. And, they've just done it with a different twist. And, I'm a big fan of Twitter and been on it, since day one. And I actually think the company is worth $20 billion. I think that Twitter is changing media. It's not now just a publishing platform. I just came from an NBA owners meeting, and we were talking about over-the-top providers. Netflix. Is Netflix a technology company, or is it now going to be a cable channel? They have more subscribers than HBO, and they're going to be over the top. And I remember laughing, saying, well, AOL, we used to have AOL for broadband, and we called it our over-the-top strategy. Didn't turn out so well. We couldn't get the adoption by the cable companies. We had to buy Time Warner. That was the reason we bought a cable company, to be able to use that plant to get our interface to have the digital media in the middle. And so, most of these big new ideas have their roots in something, in the past 20 years. And it's why a lot of the winners now, you're betting the jockey, not the horse. You're literally having to find the great entrepreneur who just has this this willpower, this vision, this core belief structure in what they're building and what they're doing. and then you make the investment, and then you try to add value from your experience. And that's what we've been doing. I know it's what you do at your firm. We're not just writing checks. We're trying to help these companies to get from niche to a big mass.
So advertising, is what about half of these companies are supported on. The rest are actually trying to now do commerce and do transactions. Payments, the next big thing. So you're chairman of the board of Groupon, you're on the board of Amex, and you've got your own investments into the payment space. Where does it go? What are you thinking on there?
Well, I do think payments are going to be a place where there'll be a lot of venture capital investment, and there'll be a lot of money burned, because there's a romance around bypassing the banks. The problem is with money, the regulators are deeply involved. And so most of the solutions that I've seen try to downplay all of the issues with 50-state licensing and know thy customer and being able to deal with literally hundreds of regulatory bodies. What I do see now happening, and we had started a company called Revolution Money that was acquired by American Express, and it's become their digital payments platform. It drives their joint venture with Walmart. It's called Bluebird, because Walmart wanted to be in the banking business, and it said, how hard can it be to be in the banking business? Well, it ran into the regulatory issues and said, well, you do the banking part of this, and we'll do the customer acquisition part of this. And so the exciting things that I see right now, I think crowdfunding this week is going to be a really, really big week, where Washington will finally say that, yes, let's allow verticals, let's allow small businesses, let's allow lending, peer-to-peer lending. This will all become much more legitimate and front stage. And so I think there's going to be a lot of activity there. I think you're going to see a lot of vertical. Kickstarter's wonderful, but very broad-based, and we know that verticals after the broad base is where a lot of the value gets created. I just saw a plan the other day on repayvets.com, and it's a place where people can support and adopt and give money and support charitable efforts or invest in small businesses or help veterans find jobs. And I think you're going to see those kinds of platforms really emerging. I do think you're going to see a lot of activity in the micro lending. I think that the banks right now, and by the way, it's one of the reasons that I fell in love with Groupon early on, and also one of the reasons that Groupon was so successful at launch. Groupon was factoring and providing cash flow to small businesses when banks weren't. Right? Basically, we would go out and get customers and bring a check to the small business owner. And we know the importance of small businesses. They create all of the jobs. They basically are the engine of innovation for the country. But banks in 08, 09 stopped lending. So if you wanted to get a second pizza oven, a bank wouldn't give you the money. And you couldn't get receivables financing anymore. And so Groupon emerged, and it was a great deal for consumers, but really we were providing cash flow, because if you sold 10,000 Groupons and you got $20 per, we would give you the check 30 days and then 60 days. So you would have those dollars, and then you got the breakage. So that was a double bottom line kind of business. It did really well, fastest growing company in a long, long time. And it provided the means for small businesses to stay afloat and not have to lay people off and the like. I think what you're going to see now are local businesses that want financing, and neighbors or people that go to the pizza parlor or go to the restaurant, they'll provide the financing. And we'll individually now all start to look like we're mini bankers, that, you know, we would probably trust our local guy in the restaurant if we go there all the time, and we might say, yes, I will finance, or me and my 3 friends who come here all the time will finance your pizza oven. And so I think that change is going to open up, you know, a lot of opportunity.
And do you own any Bitcoin?
You know, Bitcoin, I think new currencies are becoming unbelievably important. You mentioned American Express. So American Express has 1 trillion member rewards points. That's $1 billion a year. And now you can start to use, when you check out at Amazon, you can put it on your credit card, or you can convert your member rewards points into dollars. You can make donations with your points. You're converting this new currency into dollars. And I think we're going to see that as a huge new segment of miles, points, barter, all being created to almost be banked, and that there'll be a market that's set for what these are worth, and that people will accept them as payments. And, you know, this whole movement towards mobile payments, the speed of that is so dramatic, that really will allow these banks, these virtual banks that exist, to really become big new businesses.
So, no, I had dinner with a bunch of people in this room last night, and then even the panel before this is, you know, what's happening with media, from television to film. You have an online company for Snag Films on doing documentaries. What are your thoughts?
I founded a company, and I'm the largest shareholder, but Comcast has invested. Terry Semmel from Warner and Yahoo invested, is on the board, and it's a double bottom line company. And so when I retired from AOL in 2006, I was panicked that I wasn't going to be relevant anymore. I said, I'll retire. I own my sports teams, but I was really nervous about losing relevance. And so I started reading as much as I could, and you know, China was of great interest to me. I just thought that this awakening giant that would basically be the biggest economy and the biggest internet economy very, very quickly, I should know more about it. And I was reading, I read a book called The Rape of Nanking, unbelievable book. And on the cover, it said, The Forgotten Holocaust. 2 words I thought I would never put together, Forgotten Holocaust. And so I read the book. I knew nothing about what had happened, and within the book was a segment about how 15 Americans and Europeans had stayed behind in Nanking, China, and built a safe zone and saved the lives of 300 Chinese people. And in China, they were worshipped as gods and goddesses. So at a time when American business people were not being looked favorably around the world, 2008, 2009, in China, there was this really good vibe. And so I decided I was going to make a movie called Nanking about these people that created this safe zone, like a Schindler's List for China. And so I made this movie, and I sent it to Sundance, and it was accepted at Sundance and won all these awards, and it got bought for distribution. And so Idiot Savant, my first film, and they buy it for distribution, and in January of '06. And the studio head calls me and says, "Good news, we're opening your movie Christmas week," almost a year later, in 2 theaters in Manhattan. And I said, "Have you seen the movie? It's a Chinese Holocaust movie. Why would you show it Christmas week in Manhattan?" And he said, "Well, there's 30,000 movie screens in North America in 8,000 buildings, and only 500 of them will show independent films and documentary films." And I said, "You're kidding. And oh, by the way, we take your HD and we turn it into analog film." So I've spent my whole life taking analog and turning it into digital. And so I said, I want to fix this. And so I started something called Snag Films. And we now have 8,000 documentary and independent movies. We stream about 40 to 50 million films per month. We're available on 167 platforms, and we've become the viable distribution channel now for this next generation of filmmaker, right? Because this next generation, the YouTube kids, they think and express in video. They'll all be independent and documentary filmmakers, and they need a platform for distribution. I made up a word called philanthropy, because all these movies have a double bottom line around them, and we hook up charities or petitions, with the film. And so it's just another case where, the web is totally disrupting traditional media. We called it Snag Films because we allow you as an individual to snag a film, put it onto your Facebook page or your blog, or if you're a media site, you can embed the film. We have about 400,000 virtual movie theaters open now that around the web that stream Snag Films movies. And so I just think that once the genie got out of the bottle, that this week Netflix surpassed HBO in terms of subscribers, that they're in discussions with all of the cable companies about really being a movie channel. I think that owning the sports teams, will Google and Apple and YouTube be bidders on our content? Will they see that sports programming is one of the few pieces of content that people will pay for? And I think you'll see the Apples, the Googles, the Netflix bidding on sports content. And I think Facebook one day, same way, will be looking at ways to become more video enabled. There'll be a platform to deliver video. Sports and movies are a natural thing that's social. You go to the movies so that you can be within a social, you take a date or you go with your wife or your family so you can have something to talk about. It activates the discussion. And so I think it's the greatest time right now to be a new media entrepreneur because there is such great dislocation that's going on.
Thank you. We're out of time. I think we're the last thing before lunch, but appreciate the time.
Great. Thank you.